Okay, so welcome to the Bodybuilding Lifestyle Podcast, Episode 3, the show where we discuss the challenges of balancing out the bodybuilding lifestyle around the rest of our busy lives. Today we have got Andy Scott on the show. How are we getting on, Andy? Good to have you.
Yeah, good mate. It's good to be on. Good to be your third guest.
Yeah, absolutely. Loads of people suggested you, so I was like, nah, I need to message him. I think last time we spoke was when I was down for my last coaching session for posing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's been a couple of months. So how are you getting on?
Good mate. So I've got probably another 6 weeks left of this push of this off season. So the plan is to do another 6 weeks. Obviously try add as much tissue as I can in that time, and then probably a 10 week health phase going into a prep. So I want to be kind of like thoroughly, like, what's the word? Thoroughly fresh going into the prep for the pro debut. So we've agreed to do 20 weeks for the pro debut, or allow myself for 20 weeks. But I don't think I need that. But it's kind of one of those ones where, because it's the pro debut, obviously a far higher standard, I kind of just want to make sure that everything's kind of done as perfect as humanly possible, and giving myself more time is definitely the way to kind of do that. So you got 3 shows planned later this year, and yeah, I've got no expectations at all. I'm just gonna be as best as I can possibly be and just see what happens. So
Yeah, sounds like a good way to do it. Are you
yeah,
excited for it though?
yeah, really excited. It's kind of the I've been waiting. I've been competing since I was 19, so it's been, I was at 2012, so it says 2025. So yeah, 13 years in the making to get to this point. So again, I've got no expectations. I've stood on stage with guys who have been on the pro scene for a while. I've stood next to Andrew Jacked. I've competed against James Hollingshead back in the day. I've competed against Nathan Styles, Jamie Dorego. So there's a lot of pros that I've been up against as their time as amateurs. So I kind of know where I am in terms of my own physique and things like that, but I'm under no kind of illusion that, or delusion that, it's gonna be pretty tough. But again, I think I'm the best I've ever looked at this weight, and yeah, I'm just hopefully going to bring just something completely different compared to previous years. So
Do you think, with it being your pro debut, that you would say that it's much and such? I mean, like, I would say for first timers that your first time show is very much about gathering data to apply to your next off season and your next prep to come back better. Would you say that that's quite similar with your pro debut? That's the kind of something that you're aiming for?
yeah, kind of, because I've got more muscle now. The body will react differently. So with every ounce that we add, we see there's a difference in metabolism, there's a difference in body mechanics, chemistry, so on and so forth. Obviously, maybe carry different injuries and all that as well. So yeah, there is an essence of that. But with 13 years of competing, I think I kind of know my body pretty well, and I still work with Nick Vandal. I've been with Nick for just under 10 years. So Nick knows me pretty well, mindset pretty well as well. So all the kind of things are in place to ensure that it's going to be as, hopefully, as stress free as humanly possible. But I think I'm really trying to remind myself that it's just a show. I've got no, I'm not stepping on stage having to like knock anyone out, and I'm just going to just try and just be the best I can be and just see where I end up. So if my best is last call out in my first season, then I know what I need to work on. I know what I need to do. So that's kind of the way I'm seeing it.
Yeah, sounds quite intelligent to do it that
Yeah.
way.
I mean, I'm insanely competitive. I'm very, very competitive, but I'm also a realist as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Are your kind of long-term goals to take this as far as possible, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I saying all that, I do believe I can win a pro show one day. The goal is to stand on the Olympia stage. I don't know if any Scotsmen have actually stood on the Olympia stage. I know Alex Smalls did a few years ago, but she's in fitness, so I don't know if any bodybuilders have stood in an open.
Yeah.
There might have been back in the day, in the maybe 60s and 70s, but in terms of, like, if we call it the modern era, there's been no one. So it'd be cool just to kind of have that accolade and eventually get there.
You'd be representing us all, mate. Fucking right. That'd be cool to see.
Yeah.
So, all the best for you with that. So, if I just get into a couple of the questions that I had, and well, for topics as well. So, the first one that I've got written down is, what is the best advice for, and before I start this actually, I meant to say, we are very much heavily going to be focusing on posing for this podcast today. Usually the podcast is revolving around how people would manage to fit bodybuilding around the rest of your lives, but we'll focus on that a wee bit at the end. But I like, because you're very much into posing, I'm quite a big, I've got a lot of passion for posing too, so I'd like to focus on that.
Yeah.
So, best advice for a first timer in regards to learning to pose?
Watch as much online footage of shows as humanly possible. Go to as many shows as humanly possible as well. I actually filmed a reel the other day on that, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, where people are like, they're wanting to compete. And he's like, have you ever been to a show? No. Right, okay. So you have no idea how things are set up, what a show feels like, the atmosphere, etc. So go to as many shows as humanly possible. Watch the classes, your respective classes, the ones that you go for. And yeah, there's a lot of material online running through posing. I've got, I don't want to plug my own stuff, but I've got a YouTube video that's done quite well, a Basics 101 video on YouTube. So there is material there. We're lucky enough now, maybe not so much in Scotland, but definitely in the UK, we've got posing coaches as well. So people do kind of specifically deal with that. That's what I kind of do. I do a wee bit of that in the Central Belt. I know there's guys up north. I know you do a wee bits as well up north. But yeah, there is the option for that. That didn't exist at all when I started. There was absolutely no such thing as a posing coach. I think if you were to suggest that, you'd probably be laughed out the room back when I started. But, yeah, even just online coaches, let alone posing coaches. But it's quite a big thing now. You've got coaches across the UK who specifically, deal with just posing clients. They don't have online clients. They just have online. They just have posing clients, which is pretty wild. So, but the access is far better. So in my opinion, I'm sure you'll agree, there's no excuse to have bad posing with all that array of people, coaches, online material, the ability to go to 1.5 million shows, even in Scotland. It's all there for you to kind of go and witness and pay attention to. And of course, practice. No one's Bob Paris from the very beginning. Everyone has to work on their posing. Even the most gifted posers, people who kind of just pick it up instantly, they still have to work on it. So you can always spot people who haven't practiced a mile off. I mean, you've seen it where people are like shaking on stage, overly sweating, not moving right, not listening to the judges, turning the wrong way. So yeah, it's one of those ones where practice definitely makes perfect when it comes to posing.
It's potentially something that's overlooked a lot. I know that for my first show, I definitely overlooked posing, which is kind of why I think I said this to you when I last came down, that one of my goals for this off season is to nail the fuck out of posing. Like next time I stand on stage, I want to be looked at and seen as like, yeah, he can move between his poses well, he can hold them well, and it draws the eye a lot more. And I think it's very much overlooked by people.
Yeah, and from when you first came to see me, like there has been a massive difference to your like flow, the way you move. It's far smoother, it's far more precise. It just looks far more professional. Not that you were bad before, but you can tell that you've been putting in a lot more work with your posing.
Yeah, you can ask anyone that I know. I'm fucking passionate about making it happen, dude.
Yeah.
It's funny actually, the video that you mentioned that you've got on YouTube. So I actually, for a lot of my clients that I go over posing with, I direct them to that video to go over when they're doing their check-ins and stuff like that and listen to, because I got value out of it. So I send people that way as well.
Yeah, I'm planning on doing a classic posing one this season. So I just touched on like the compulsory poses. So this one I'll touch on I do the 9 compulsory poses in that video in the symmetry rounds as well. So this one I'll do maybe 10, 15 classic shots and just kind of talk them through that. So hopefully that kind of adds a little bit more value to that.
Yeah, no, I look forward to that.
So you call it 15 poses now. Well.
Okay, so speaking of poses, so which pose is your all-time personal favourite pose? We'll say a mandatory, like a standard bodybuilder mandatory, but also a classic pose.
For me,
Yeah.
um, I like my back double bicep. I think that's come up. I think I've always had a quite strong back double bicep, but that's come up quite a lot relatively recently. Just kind of 3D look to my back, so I really like how that looks. It's funny. I'm a fan of my front double, assuming I'm in control of where the camera is. So see, like if it's like a stage shot or like someone's taking it from the side, I'm not a big fan of it because it looks. I twist when I do my front double. So if you've taken it from my left side, it looks really weird. So it has to be specifically front on. But in terms of like the overall look, I think my back double is probably my favourite shot. Classic pose wise, I do this kind of lunge thing on my knee, where I have my one hand behind my head and I've got my left arm kind of. You used it for the.
I think
You
that's
used
the
it
one
for the story, yeah,
this video. Yeah.
remember that, yeah. That's my favourite pose for me because I've not got the smallest waist. I've also not got the biggest waist, but I think in that shot my waist looks tiny. I like the way my body flows in that shot, so I've used that pose in every single posing routine I've done. I really like that one, and then probably another one I like as well is it's kind of like a victory lunge. So I'm kind of going like that, and I'm like leaning forward.
I know the one you're on about.
Yeah, so I really like those two. Those are my two favourites.
I'll tell you what I kind of find is through prep and also in my off season, I change what I prefer is as my favorite pose. Like
Yeah.
as my body changes, I'm like, this is my favorite now.
Aye, aye.
But like just now, I'm really rating my front double as
Yeah.
a mandatory. Like I think it just kind of it's one of my favorites. But for classic, probably Archer.
Yeah, I like your action shot. Yeah.
Especially after the changes that we made to it, just in terms of like kind of where I'm positioning like the more kind of like twist to my hips and stuff like that. It looks a lot better. So
Yeah. No, it looks really good. Yeah, your front double as well. I think you've always had good legs, but you've brought up your legs even more. So that kind of sweep to your lower half is kind of like really adding to it as well. Yeah, definitely.
this one, I'm gonna say by the way, my earphones keep beeping. I don't know if that means they're going to turn off at some point. So we may get an unexpected appearance from that.
So when I've used my headphones on podcasts, the AirPods, like sometimes the quality is good, sometimes it's not. So I just don't use them anymore.
So my laptop's picking up the audio like for actual recording, but I'm just listening through the earphones. It's
Oh,
just so in case there's like any echo, because like I said before we started the podcast, the last one with Rob, I didn't have earphones, and there's a setting on Riverside that I'm using to record this where you can cancel the echo.
Yeah.
And it just cut out my voice every time that Rob was talking. It was horrible.
Yeah.
So
Well, why you make that an option? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's because it's like your voice would echo through my laptop.
Uh-huh.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fuck knows. Okay. Okay, so the importance of transitions in posing for both comparisons and routines.
So transitions, you can display different muscles in a different way, in a different light by highlighting transitions. So obviously we have the compulsory poses, we have the symmetry poses, but when you move, certain muscle fibers, certain separation comes out, and we can only do that via trying to highlight the transition itself. So you'll see between, for instance, like if I go from a front double into a lat spread, like I'll bring my hands down by my side to show off my delt striations, and then if we look at like say a side chest, you may want to do like a classic kind of Arnold shot in between and then sit into the chest shot in order to show like the midsection, the oblique, something a little bit more classic. So yeah, the transitions are a big part of it, and it's definitely something to overlook because you'll see guys just go from front double and then they'll kind of like just dilly-dally lat spread and then they'll fidget into a side chest. It looks, when someone can transition, it looks so much more polished. It looks so professional when someone can transition. I mean, I'm pretty sure like Samson anyway. Samson's got great transitions.
I love Samson's posing.
Yeah.
So I feel like he's got like a very unique style to his posing as well.
Yeah.
Like especially that song he used for his solo routine at the Olympia. Like it was like lions or something like that, and he literally made his posing look like he's a fucking lion on stage. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's cool. So
yeah. Yeah, so
yeah,
there's for instance as well, like probably the best example actually is the going from a back double into a lat spread where you pull your arms back before you hit the lat spread, and that shows off your Christmas tree. There's no real shot that allows you to do that. Yeah, your Christmas tree is shown in a back double, but when you pull your arms back, you can show all the fibers through your lower back. So that's probably the best example of where a transition is very important and highlighting that transition. So because you can't really show those fibers off in any other shot. So.
I've never really thought about it in that sense for transitions, like showing off like striations and muscle fibers. It was
Yeah,
I always more kind of thought along the lines of like catching the eye,
that
being
too. Yeah,
visibly, yeah, catching the eye, and if you can transition well, whereas you're compared to like somebody that's like sloppy on stage, just like dead robotic and like slumping between their shots, like it just looks lazy.
yeah, yeah. It will draw like if you're like kind of doing something flash, like the judge will be like that, like kind of looking coming back to you, just because you're constantly catching their eyes. So, and like you said, if you're built like a fridge and you move like a fridge, then it can go against you, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if you aren't, if you don't have as good of a physique as the guy next to you, but you're transitioning well, like you say, the judge's eyes are keeping
Yeah,
back to you, so it definitely gives you an advantage.
100%. It definitely does. It's all about kind of drawing eyes because you've got to remember if you are in a busy enough show, the judges have to kind of rattle through classes pretty quickly, and you need to use every second on stage to show off. So
Yeah, absolutely. And transitions are hard to learn as well. It's it's one
that's
thing for
that's
somebody that's new trying to learn to pose, but like to go in between their poses.
yeah, no, that's the kind of like the dancing aspect of posing, to knowing where to put your feet and whatnot. So like I try to kind of whittle it down to like put it down to steps like you would with a dance. Like I've never done dancing or anything in my life, but I kind of know where like you have to put like you have to like 1, 2, 3 in terms of like your foot placement and whatnot. So I kind of do something similar with that where we break it down into individual steps of each shot during the transition. And for instance, if you're moving from just say a front relaxed to a side relaxed, you may turn in threes. So turn left foot across for 2, body round for 3. So that's kind of like where the kind of dancing and kind of like the melodic side of things come about when it comes to posing.
Absolutely. Kind of making it like an art.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it's very kind of like it's in time. I think I normally, when I'm transitioning between shots, I do it in like kind of steps of 4, and I do it in my head. So like 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4, with the final one being like setting into the pose. And it just makes everything look a bit more seamless.
Yeah, yeah. And then what you do is over time you slowly make those like 1, 2, 3, 4s just become like one number because it's so smooth. You don't actually see the individual steps. But obviously there's guys, I'm sure you've seen them as well, where sometimes you wonder how they've walked through the door because they're so uncoordinated. So it's like even if you teach the 1, 2, 3, 4, it takes them a long time to get that nailed, and then trying to iron that out is obviously a bit of a task for a lot of people. But I think if you're relatively well coordinated, you should pick up posing relatively well and transition pretty well.
Absolutely. I think once it clicks, it clicks.
Aye,
Like
aye.
I remember trying to learn how to do transitions,
Uh-huh.
and I think I don't know. I very much think for certain people it kind of does just click, but I found it awkward initially, and then it just kind of happens.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, but like when I show clients it, and I'm like, right, let's try and do it this way, and they're like, you make it look so easy. But it's not easy initially. It's difficult to explain to somebody. I mean, you're probably better at explaining it. I mean, you will be better at explaining it than I am. But it's hard to get that through to somebody. The
Aye.
timing, the way that your feet are meant to go, because people look like they've got 2 left feet sometimes.
Yeah. So
You know,
how do you do that? I was like, I don't know. that's something.
I just do it.
Yeah, just do it. So, I remember one of my managers at my old work. He was saying that it's not the poses themselves, but it's like what you're doing with your hands. I don't understand what you're doing with your hands. I kind of like my hands kind of like have their own like mind of their own as I'm moving in a coordinated way. And he's just like, it's just the way your hands move. It's just like it constantly brings my eye back to you, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So it's not something I practice. But I guess when I watch footage back, I'm like, oh yeah, I see what I'm doing with my hands. But that's not something I taught myself. But There are aspects of, like, there are kind of, there'll be guys, like we said at the start, who will have to graft to get their posing bang on. I mean, I think Dorian Yates said like he never felt really overly comfortable posing. He said he had to put a lot of work into it. Whereas other guys, I've had people come to me and done one session. I'm kind of like, mate, you've kind of got it all, to be honest. Like, yeah, practice, and go with the rounds with me if you want a bit of conditioning. But there's guys that it comes so just naturally to.
Yeah, I totally agree. Something that I've had, not really related, but guys get so used to posing in front of a mirror, and I think a lot of people forget that you don't have the mirror when you're on stage.
Yeah.
You know, how do you try and get past that?
So what I used to do, I don't really do it nowadays. I don't know why I don't do it nowadays. Is I would do like, it was actually Graham Park that taught me this. I would do 3 rounds facing the mirror, and then I'd do 3 rounds facing away. So that's kind of how I did it, and just kind of picturing where everything is in my mind if there was a mirror there, and then doing that without it. But it's quite funny because the first time I experienced posing without a mirror was the day of my first show. I was like, oh, this is actually quite strange. Lucky enough, I think I'd worked my posing enough that I didn't really see it, but it feels odd not being able to like subtly correct your physique when you're practicing. So that's probably a tip to go back to your first kind of question is practice without a mirror as well. Doing maybe 3 rounds with a mirror and 3 rounds without is probably a good protocol to follow, I'd say.
No, I need to try that. What I've done is I'll stand in front of the mirror, I'll close my eyes, and I'll like go into the pose.
Yeah.
Once I'm happy that, like, kind of in my head, I imagine that I can see the mirror. Right, I'm happy with where I'm sitting. Then open them, and then be like, right, okay, now if I'm doing a front double, and I think that I've got my arms in the right place, and then I'm like, oh, actually, no, my elbows need to be higher.
Yeah.
And then try and go into it again.
Yeah, it's a good way of doing it. Yeah, I like that. Definitely.
Okay, so what was the next thing? My earphones are beeping like fuck now.
Yeah.
It may get to a point where we just use the standard speakers. So, how important is mobility/sports massage to be able to pose better?
Massive. So I spoke about my 2 favourite classic shots being lunges. If you've not got mobility through your adductor, you're not going to be hit shots like that. Stretching, mobility, I think even if it's unrelated to posing, is something that's not remotely done enough by most. That goes from every level, from top to bottom. I was quite lucky in the sense that I'd done a lot of mobility through martial arts when I was really young, and it was kind of drilled into me then. So I think not only did I carry some of that ability into my adult years, but also some of like the tools that were used in terms of stretches and opening up and things like that. To be honest, like in my first maybe 3 or 4 years of training, I wasn't doing much in the way of stretching mobility. It wasn't until I started getting niggles and pains, I was like, maybe that's a call to start stretching. So I remember me and my training partner Sean, when I was still living in Aberdeen, we would do like maybe 15 minutes pre and 15 minutes post, and that was kind of like a non-negotiable. I will admit right now I'm being a wee bit lazy with it, but it does come back quite quickly. But yeah, if you want to be able to get your fist behind your shoulder in a front double, if you want to be able to do certain classic shots and lunge and transition correctly, as we just discussed there, then you do need to have that mobility and some element of flexibility. The good thing is that posing itself is very conducive to mobility. So like opening your rib cage up, opening your arms up, your shoulders, your legs, it actually is it is mild mobility in of itself, but it's not the only stuff you should be doing. So we should be ensuring that our rotator cuffs are as nimble, as mobile as possible. There's some guys that can't even hang from a bar. Like my training partner struggles to hang from a bar because his shoulders are so immobile. Things like that. People who can't even stretch their adductor correctly because they're so immobile. So having a good level of mobility, you don't need to be a gymnast, but you can have enough where it's not hindering your, number one, your posing, and then obviously your training as well. So yeah, it's vitally important.
And the thing is, I don't imagine that it would take much time to get a lot of value out of, a
No,
per session.
the thing about stretching is it's boring. Mobility is boring. Like I actually have a mobility coach that I work with,
Okay.
and that, well, obviously paying for a session is my incentive to go to her and get mobility work done. So that's kind of my incentive there. Whereas, like I said, I've been a wee bit lazy now where my pre and post stretching mobility is fairly rapid. I'm just like, right, I just want to get the session done and go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is boring. It is boring, but it does pay off. And I think I've been training for 33, 17 years in May on my birthday, and I'd say I'm relatively fresh. I've had shoulder surgery and stuff, but I think I'm still relatively fresh just due to the ability to be as adherent to mobility as possible. So
Yeah, mobility is something that I'll admit that I am not great at the moment. I've had times where I am. I think like in the off season, I don't know about you, but I feel so much more immobile, especially when I'm like kind of in new territory for body weight. Like just
yeah,
now, I'm the heaviest I've ever been, and like I feel like a block of wood. It's
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, but I get sports massage weekly. It's one of my clients that does it for me, which is quite good. But I don't do any mobility work, and I feel like that probably it I don't think sports massage does it on its own. I think you also need that time with mobility work.
Yeah. So the two combined are what's going to get you where you need to be. Mobility work, no, sorry, massage work allows for the muscle and for byproducts to be broken down and opened up. Whereas I remember one of my massage guy Ricky. I think everyone in Central Belt goes to Ricky, by the way, but he said to me, he's like, for instance, my forearm. I originally went to him because my brachialis was like a block of steel, and he was like, you would never in a million years be able to stretch that out ever, just due to the complexity of the brachialis and where it sits and whatnot. So he's like, the only way to get into that is to either stop training, which is not an option, or brutalize it with massage. So I remember I couldn't even pour a cup of tea. It was that bad at one point, and then he opened it up, and within literally weeks I was able to start like dumbbell rowing again. I couldn't do any rowing at all because both brachialis were so tight. So yeah, it's the two combined are great. Obviously, massage and physio work is quite expensive. Not everyone can afford to go every week. That would be the ideal. But if you can get once a month at least, that's something.
Yeah,
So I highly recommend that. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I encourage. I think about 90% of my clients go to the same guy that I go to for massage. I think they're not going as frequently as what I am, but it's needed not even just for like an opposing sense, but also for their training.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's
Definitely.
I notice issues with people like the main one that I notice is like tightness in the traps, like on a specific side. So I don't know if you ever see somebody like when they're doing like a shoulder press, for example, or like, even like a bench press, and they're like this on one
Yeah.
side, and
Yeah.
it's because that trap's just tight as fuck, and
Yeah.
it's such an easy fix. It just takes going in and getting sports massage done.
Yeah. You can see it in posing as well.
Yeah,
You can see in the back shots, particularly like particularly the back lat spread. That tends to be the shot that's disrupted by tightness in certain areas, such as the pec. Obviously, the rotator cuffs, traps, rhomboids, lats. When you do have an issue there with mobility and being tight, that is the pose, in my opinion, that gets ruined by immobility.
one that I notice a lot is front double bicep. Even if a guy's got big lats that are very like prominently seen from the front when in a double bicep, it's almost as if like they're that tight that it's just not opening up, and it's very much like see when guys are like up here instead of there. It's and all it takes is just go in, get
Yeah,
massage,
I call
and
that
it's gonna make it so much look better.
the MMA front double bicep, because you see when you see fighters they're like this, like that. Yeah, you want the traps to be relaxed and like pulled down
Yeah.
your back. Yeah, that is a big issue. Is having that shoulder girdle just pulled up and raised. So
Yeah, I mean that's the problem because we weight train to get to where we want to for the stage to be doing posing, it's almost like it creates an issue that prevents you from being able to pose correctly because
Yeah.
we're so active, our muscles are so active that they're tight,
Yeah.
and then they just need release to be able to actually go where we want them to go when we're posing.
Yeah, so like the example I gave, like if you probably not probably gonna end up shitting on free physios here, but the when you like for instance when you go to a physio and for instance if it's a rotator cuff issue and they're like, here's your wee leaflet, here is an elastic band that is probably not even strong enough to hold letters together, and I want you to do these, like just internal rotations. I was like, okay, mate, well, I can bench 4 plates. How the fuck is that doing anything? You know what I mean? So it's one of those ones where people massively underestimate what continual weight training is doing to the muscle. Constant, that's the whole point of lifting. The muscle has to contract in order to lift the weight. So it's contraction after contraction after contraction. You know, literally tons. You're working in tonnage when it comes to volume. So that's when, like you said, it does become vitally important that we need to, you know, get some deep massage to open everything up and realize that weight training is actually very obviously it's productive in terms of muscle growth, which is what we do this for, but it's also counterintuitive in terms of mobility and being muscle bound. So
Yeah. I was going to say as well, so from personal experience, I had an issue for a long time with my lower back. I wasn't able to do hip hinging at all, like any, without severe lower back cramps. And I was trying to sort it out with my sports massage guy for a long time, and we were just trying to figure out what the issues were. And eventually he was like, look, I think you need to go in to a physio that can do dry needling. Because he literally only does like kind of like manual work, like, you know, actual massage. So I went in and seen a different physio, and like he felt my quads, and like my guy wasn't able to get into my quads like that well at all. Like this other dude felt them, and he was like, mate, they're literally like two canisters, like steel canisters. Yeah, like they're not. There's nothing. There's no give in them at all. So he dry needled them, which was very fucking uncomfortable.
yeah,
But it released it, and then I went back to my sports massage guy, and like he felt them, and he was like, "Yeah, I can actually work on these now."
yeah.
You know, so and since then, I think over the last 6 months, I've went from barely being able to hinge with the bar to now pulling. I think my last session was like 130 off the ground. The strength's definitely there to do more, but
Yeah.
in terms of pain, like I'm at like 5% pain of what I was, and it's literally just from being so regimed with sports massage, going in and getting the dry needling done as well,
Aye.
and the rehabilitation of it. So it's it's a process, and I think people just need to be willing to go through that process. If you want this that bad, you need to put that in.
100%. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I've got a good friend who actually says that people who go to physio end up getting injured more often. I'm like, that is complete shite. Like, you've just pulled that out your arse. That's not based on anything. So
That's when like really fat people or like unhealthy people are like, you shouldn't eat eggs; they're bad for you.
yeah,
While they're eating a McDonald's.
aye, exactly. Aye. You've had about 12 bags of Monster Munch today, mate. Aye.
Yeah. Okay, so actually, something that I was also going to touch on as well. So you mentioned that you'd had shoulder surgery. How do you find that impacts posing, or if at all?
Like right now,
Like that, yeah. Like, does it still impact you that you've had that surgery, that
no.
injury that's been there? No.
No, if anything, the shoulder. Well, so I think I originally injured it in 2016, and then I kind of just managed it without actually knowing what it was, and then the full on tear happened probably across 2022, and then so prior to it probably feels better than it did even prior to 2016 before I originally done it. So
Okay.
he's the surgeon, Professor Mackay, at Ross Hall in Glasgow. He has like his own patented like bracing method to like brace the shoulder or brace the knee. And I think whatever he's done has given me like a superhuman shoulder compared to like my original shoulders. So yeah, in terms of posing, in terms of training, I don't get anything from it. It took about 9 months for it to be 100% though, post surgery, but even then, that's still pretty quick. I'll probably have to get the left one done at some point. I'm hoping not during my career, But the left one will probably have to be done at some point, I think. He actually said to me, the surgeon said that everyone who weight trains, hard, probably has some element of slap tear in each shoulder. And most people have arthritis as well, so it's just about obviously the severity of the two. You can still function with a slap tear. You can still train insanely heavy. A slap tear won't pull you out of the game, but if it's kind of impacting, for me, it was uncomfortable enough to put me off, and I noticed it. So that's why I got it. That's why I got it done.
That's just keyhole surgery as well, if I'm
Yeah.
mistaken, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. The thing with injuries, like it's very individual, like how your experience is going to be in that. Like, have you ever come across anybody that's got injuries that like 100% has affected them long term for posing?
Yeah, chest tears. Chest tears are usually the one that.
Tears, okay.
Yeah, that's usually the one that impacts. Maybe not so much mobility, but in terms of having to like manipulate the pose in order to hide it as much as you possibly can. But like if you've torn the pec from the joint, the ability to externally rotate is probably very limited as well. So there's that aspect. Sometimes there's overcompensation with the back and the rotator cuff. So a torn pec will result in issues with the rotator cuff on the same side, and then that can distort the back. So we usually see, just say this side's torn, we usually see the rotator is kind of like lifted like this, so the lat spreads uneven with the two sides. So yeah,
Are you speaking specifically about like muscular tear or like kind of off from the tendon off the bone? Like,
from
'cause I know there's like some are worst case scenario, and compared to others.
yeah. So
What it is.
a muscle belly tear in the chest, or any muscle for that fact, I think you can hide that. If it's been torn from the tendon, then you're going to have a big hole in your chest, so you're going to have to kind of manipulate your poses that way. So, like you said, it's the severity of the shot, but usually I find chest tears to be the hardest to work around posing.
Yeah, because it will change the look.
Yeah, for most, yeah.
Not very good, so we need to try and avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah, don't do it.
No flat bench.
Yeah, definitely not.
That's something I've not done for fucking years now.
And I've not touched that since I was a teenager.
I think the only time that I would ever program in flat bench for somebody is one if they were a powerlifter, but I wouldn't coach powerlifters anyway unless they just wanted to kind of get strong and they insisted, or to build up initial strength for a complete beginner. But once they get to the point where they're using weight where they can injure themselves with, I'm like, incline bar.
Yeah.
You know.
I remember it must be about I remember the year specifically, so it was probably about 2010, because I remember being at uni. I remember going from uni to DW down at the beach in Aberdeen. Well, it was JJB at the time. And then I remember saying to a guy I used to speak to, and I was like, every time I flat bench, my right shoulder like caves in like this. I wake up like that. And he's like, maybe don't flat bench. I'm like, okay. Never flat benched ever again. So, yeah, it's going to be things like that. You will get people who flat bench, and like, yeah, my shoulders hurt every time I flat bench. It's like, maybe don't flat bench.
The thing is, there's like such like an ego thing attached to it for people. Like,
I know.
Some people you just can't tell them. You know, it's like that classic, like, how much do you bench, bro?
Yeah.
It doesn't fucking matter.
Like if mechanically it works for you to build your chest, then great. Just obviously be very wary of what it can potentially do. That accounts for every kind of exercise, like chest exercise. For instance, like I love incline dumbbell press, but when you're kicking 70s and 80s above your head, that's very dangerous as well. So every exercise, even if it's a machine, comes with an element of risk. But I would say barbell flat bench carries the most risk of all chest exercises.
Yeah, and you hear about it all the time as well.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, personally, I don't actually feel much value on my chest from flat bench.
It's all front now for me.
Yeah, but I'm a massive fan of incline. You know, so incline with the bar.
See, I felt
that's very.
So after my prep in 2022, I was like, I don't know why, but I was just like, I want to get my incline barbell as strong as humanly possible. It's always been a horrendous lift for me mechanically, and like the feeling of it, I was like, no, fuck it, I'm going to try and build my chest. Build my incline barbell as much as I can. And then that must have been the lift that caused my slap tear to get worse, because I remember warming up with with 60, and I was like, oh, this doesn't feel right. And I was like, "Right, okay, tried 100. I was like, it's uncomfortable, but it's still doable. And then I put 140 on. I was like, nah, that's fucked. So I managed to get to 4 plates for like 5 or 6 reps, which I'm actually quite proud of. I'm still proud of it, but I'll never ever go back to a barbell ever. It's just my body likes the way my shoulders like the way in which the dumbbells kind of allow for shoulder rotation. So because now, yeah, the right shoulder has been operated on, but if you look at the dumbbells, they're kind of off like that, because one shoulder sits differently. They press up evenly, but you can see there is a difference in the path of the dumbbell.
Yeah. See, I don't find much that value from the dumbbells. I feel like it's very shouldery when I'm doing it. And like, as somebody that's struggled to grow his chest for a long time, like I've mastered how to get connection from my chest. So it's not the way I'm performing it. I think it's literally just like, I say to clients all the time, like an exercise that works for me is not going to work for you. We're all totally different. That's why I hate when people say online, like, this exercise is best for growing your chest. Like, everybody's different, you know? And
Literally right before I came on this, I'm having a debate with one of the guys, one of my mates, and so it's the T-bar row. So you know, like all the shit the T-bar row gets, being like not optimal range of movement. It doesn't allow the elbows to travel all the way back, etc., etc. Yet, how many guys do we know who have got huge backs who do T-bar row? And there comes a point where people, they place mechanics and what a textbook says over how something feels. So if something feels good, you don't do exercise X, read a textbook that says it's suboptimal, and then you don't feel it. You will always feel that exercise regardless. So, yeah, I think, like you said, people get kind of wrapped up in kind of all this, especially social media. It's just, at the end of the day, you've just got coaches trying to plug content. And when bodybuilding has been the same for about 50 years, it's quite hard to come up with new stuff. So people will kind of just throw these things out and these and cite textbooks and things like that and say it's not optimal, whatever it may be. But empirical evidence is still king. If someone has done T-bar row for 10 years, or someone has done flat bench for 10 years, they have a big chest or a big back, there must be some correlation there. So it's about what you enjoy and what you feel the most.
yeah, absolutely. Like, see, when I give somebody a plan, so like the same for food, right? With your nutrition, when you put down like different food sources, we've got to think about, one, is the person enjoying this food so that they can actually adhere to the plan? And does it agree with your gut? So when I first send somebody out a plan, we're going to review that and make sure that everything's nice with the food.
Yep.
I'm going to do the same with exercises. So like when I first send somebody their plan with their exercises, I make it very clear, if these don't work for you, let me know and we'll swap them out for something that does.
Yeah.
Because, if it works well for me, it doesn't mean it's going to work well for you.
Exactly. Yeah. So if someone says to me, again, we go back to the flat bench. If someone says to me, like, I enjoy flat benching, I think I've got a big chest from it. Cool, mate, keep going. My opinion is that it is the most prolific exercise for chest injuries. I don't think there's any kind of debate with that. But if you enjoy it and you want it and you feel development for it and you feels good, keep doing it. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for how well of a connection you feel with it personally.
Yeah, like a lot of kind of if I was to do, I've done them. It's like kind of people like I'll use my mate as an example. You probably love the fact I'm talking about him, but like it's okay to just do something because you like it. You know what I mean? It's bodybuilding. At the end of the day, it can be fucking boring. It can be monotonous. It can be very just mentally draining. Like, at least make aspects of your routine something that you enjoy. I don't want to come in and do a single arm upside down banded cuffed fucking pull down. You know what I mean? I don't want to do that. It's so boring. It's so boring to me. I want to
Science guys are taking the fun out of it, man.
Exactly. I want to rip 6 plates off the floor. I want to do 8-plate T-bar. I want to do 100-kilo dumbbell row. I just want to be a fucking animal when I train back. And I don't give a fuck if it's suboptimal. If my back was bad and I was doing all these movements, 100% I'd be trying some of this kind of new age stuff. But my back's my best body part other than my legs. So why would I change what I do when I feel and enjoy everything that I do? So
Yeah, Yeah, I think it's just this whole thing with trying to reinvent the wheel. You know, like we've seen some of the best physiques in the past that were built using these movements, and now people want to question that. You know, and they've not even got any credibility to do it. Most of the time, it's a guy in a pure gym doing it that's not even built any muscle yet.
Not even that. Like if you,
Which I'm sure is just rage baiting. I swear.
I know. Even if you have a PhD from Stirling University in sports mechanics and sports science, but you've got no physique, you've got no empirical evidence of you actually doing any of this stuff. I'm like, I don't care what your biomechanics says about what I do. I don't care. I don't care. I trust me. I understand the science. Like I'm an engineer to trade. I understand science and mechanics, and trust me, I know the science. But when it comes to physiology, no, there's how many people on the planet? 8 billion. Not one human being is the same in terms of mechanics. We've all got something slightly different, slightly longer. This, for unfortunately for some, or fortunately for some. We've got shorter this, shorter that, whatever it may be. And a textbook is just the blanket. Here's a perfect human being. Here's what will happen. It doesn't mean. And then when they do all these studies as well, or X study said this. Cool. Is it done on 100 competitive bodybuilders, all relatively same size, same experience? No. Okay. Then how can we apply that to bodybuilding? How about we just apply bodybuilding and see what the results are? Isn't that a better way of doing things? You know what I mean? I get so ranty about this because it's just, you know what I mean? It's just fucking. I don't understand like how empirical evidence and just it's been tried and tested for how long has bodybuilding been competitive for? Since the 50s, 70 years. It's been tried and tested. Some of the best built human beings just do the basic shit, and we've got people who weigh $150 telling that it's wrong. It's the only sport that happens. It's the only sport that happens.
I think it's the problem is the rise of the internet. It's given a voice to people that definitely shouldn't be heard in the fitness industry.
Yeah, I know.
You know, it's because it never had the internet before. Like, you know, you back in the day, guys would find out all their information from like bodybuilding magazines and like, what their mate at the gym told them works. You know, it was never like seeing somebody do some sort of like weird cable variation where they're twisted. You know,
it's easy to get ranty about that kind of thing. But again, like, if you want to train that way, and you're seeing results, you're enjoying it, crack on.
It works.
Crack on. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. What does bother me is big guys, pros, even fucking Mr. Olympia winners being told what they're doing is wrong. That never happens in either sport. Like, see if I don't know. See if Cristiano Ronaldo walked into like an under-15s football team and told them how to do a certain thing, they would fucking listen and they would do exactly as they're told. Why in bodybuilding is it the opposite? It's so strange.
Because people are so uneducated. I mean, I don't know if you've ever like looked at like a really popular bodybuilder's comment section on their post, right? You'd think that for somebody that's been so successful that it would be positive comments, but it's literally all steroids, steroids, steroids. You wouldn't look like this without steroids. Like, you know, most guys that go to the gym, like probably 1 in 5 guys that do go to most gyms are probably taking steroids and they don't even look like they train.
Yeah.
You know? And it's because people are uneducated. They don't know what they're fucking talking about.
Yeah. I always used to I love watching Branch Warren train, and like compared to what a textbook says, pretty fucking awful, but it works. And it has worked. You know, he's a 2-time Arnold Classic champion winner, and trust me, if there's anyone that doesn't care about your opinion, it's Branch Warren. So he's a perfect example. I mean, I know a few boys who do certain things. Like, for instance, I'm just going to call him out. The way Greg deadlifts, I hate it. I've told him that, but it works. He's huge. Look at him. So who am I to tell Greg not to do that? You know what I mean? So. Yeah, that's a good example there. And if it works, again, always come back. If it works, we're seeing like that's what my mate said. He's like, but what if could your back be even better using a wider handle? Like, try the wider handle. Don't like it. Don't like how it feels. That means more to me. I don't care what you say. So
yeah, absolutely. Now, if something works for you, you've got to do it. You got
Yeah.
to just, and the thing is, I think that's part of what we're doing is kind of gradually learning what works best for us.
Uh-huh.
Like you first go into the gym and you don't know what the fuck you're doing, and it's almost like a process of learning your own body, learning what works for you, and then finally getting to that destination. I mean, fuck, if we all knew what we knew now, how much further along would we be now? If we
Exactly.
started from the start, you know?
Yeah. I always wonder that. Imagine knowing what you knew the first day you walked in the gym when you were 16. Like, I'd have been a pro when I was 19, you know what I mean? So, it's, it's quite funny when you think of it like that.
Man, I've made more progress in the last 2 years than I made the 10 years that I've been training. And it's just
Oh, yeah.
the difference in understanding now is huge.
Yeah. I
You know?
mean, yeah, I'm honestly, I can say the same as well. I think the the past few years coming off I think, yeah, probably since the shoulder surgery, because I had to change because of that. I think that made a huge difference in terms of what I was doing that probably wasn't maybe right for me. Doing maybe too much dumbbell work when I should have been using cables. But primarily, that's definitely a factor for my shoulders. I saw great results doing high volume, high frequency, high rep for shoulders, legs. On that prep there, I was doing 4 sets by the end of the prep, but my legs were, the best they've ever been. So all these wee things you learn over time, and it's trial and error. Textbook can't tell you how to do that.
Yeah. And each prep kind of progressively gets like not easier, but you're able to apply what you know about yourself better and get
Yeah.
better results from it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. The prep where I turned pro, like last year's prep, that was that was probably without doubt the easiest prep I've ever done. Easiest prep I've ever done, just because I was like, you know what? Stop trying to mess with the formula. The formula that I looked the best up until that point was 2019. I know what I'd done, like done a cheat meal every week, kept my carbs super high, done kind of moderate cardio, all other reasons, tone my training down, all these, the formula, just copy it. And then obviously I switched coaches. He had a different outlook on things, which I didn't feel kind of worked for me. But when you see that, you'll see coaches all the time saying you don't need a cheat meal each week. I'm going to say I do, and it's not a craving thing. It's not because I need to have a burger and fries. It's my body will fade in a deficit, so I need something like that. Whereas trust me, I've got clients who will never see a cheat meal ever in the time that they contest prep because it doesn't work for them. So Ali Brown, who I'm sure you know, he's doing PC in the granite. Not granite, the NABA. I can't give Ali cheat meals. It just doesn't work for him. It fucks him up mentally. Well, that fucks him up is a strong word. Physically, it doesn't really kind of comprehend. But you learn that over time, and that's what it's all about.
See, when you say a cheat meal, what kind of, like, are we talking like a burger and fries, or like are you? Because I mean, I've heard of guys having like Domino's pizzas on prep.
Yeah, so I'll go the same order every time. So just like a burger from Five Guys, large fries, and usually a packet of cookies as well, which packs about 1,300 calories in a packet. So it's pretty hefty, and the burger and fries itself is probably about 1,600 calories. So we're talking about close to 3,000 calories in one sitting, and that'll be my cheat meal from 20 weeks out until the night before the show.
Yeah, that's what I did the night before Granite as well. I had a burger and fries, and I ran that. Yeah, it was pretty. I'd imagine it was weekly. I think it was more based on like kind of the look at the time, but
Yeah,
it being more like regimed. But
yeah. If I was behind, I'd
burger and
definitely
fries.
pull it. But yeah, I just kept looking better and better. So kept
Yeah,
in.
I found that the morning after having the burger and fries, like my physique just looked more alive,
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
exactly it.
But I didn't need the cookies, so
Well, that's a mistake. Yeah, that
I'm
next
not
day.
big enough for that yet. Okay, so where were we? Okay, so this is not really related to posing. What does it take to get to IFBB pro level? Right from the start.
From the get go. Number one has to be something you actually really want. Like truly ask yourself, do you actually want to do that? I'd done 3 shows in 2012. came second, first, and came eighth officially on paper. But I didn't place. I didn't place top six, but it said eighth on the thing, so I've always said eighth. And then I won the British the following year, the UKBFF, when that was the big dog of all federations. It wasn't until I won the British that I was like, maybe I'm actually good at this. So the whole IFBB Pro thing didn't hit me until, what would have been, 18 months into competing. So with some good results as well. So that's when I was like, right, okay, maybe this is what I should be kind of focusing on. So you have to make sure that it is something you genuinely want. It's thrown around far too easily now. Like, it's just, what would be an IFBB Pro? It's like, do you actually know what that means? Again, I'm not trying to ban myself up here, but it's, even I didn't kind of comprehend what it actually meant, you know. But I mean, back in the day, there was only one pro card offered in the UK via the British. I've been very uncomfortable for most of my adult life, if in terms of putting on weight, getting fat, being shredded, feeling like death. This up and down regime that we have constantly. You know, if you consider maybe 3 months out of the year, just say those like 3 months post show, is where you kind of feel kind of good prior to pushing, where you're kind of no man's land off the back of the prep, you're still lean, etc. That's only like a small percentage of the whole journey of getting to that size. We're talking about open here as well. Open, you have to reach a certain size, which I'm not even at yet myself, where to be competitive. But yeah, being uncomfortable, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable for a long period of time. And I would say I've been uncomfortable for like, well, I mean, 13 years, in some regard. And that can be very mentally taxing if it's not something you generally want. So that's probably the thing you need to realise going forward. You have to get fat. You have to do some preps where you get, some off seasons where you get fat. That's just the way of it. Again, we go back to the guys and the previous examples, the empirical evidence. Every Olympian on that stage at Olympia this year, or the Arnold in 2 weeks' time, has been fat at some point.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I don't know what the fuck happened there. The screen went.
They've all been fat at some point. So I'm a personal believer. Now, don't get me wrong. You're not fat to the extent where fat's hanging off you, but you know you do have to get relatively soft. And we go back to kind of the new age stuff. Some guys are just not willing to do that, and that's fine. That's fine. But just know that you are, in my opinion, hindering how big you can get. So that's one thing. To be an open pro, obviously we've thought it's a bodybuilding podcast, so you do have to be willing to push the boundary with PEDs. It's obviously not something I want to do necessarily, but it's part of the process. So I really do try to pride myself on using as little as humanly possible. I know guys who have either heard what I use or what my clients use and kind of been relatively surprised as to how low it is. It's definitely something that's overdone, but at the same time, you still have to use a good whack to be an open pro. So that's another thing as well, is that these kind of acceptance. So I'm kind of pointing out the negatives prior to the positives. But you know, if you do get there eventually, and I kind of always knew I would. Again, I'm not trying to ban myself up, but I've had people like Graham Park, Nick, from a very early age saying that it is doable, and I still to this day, Nick's the only voice I listen to. Like, I've got mates, my training partner, Greg, a few other boys in the Scottish scene who I do value their opinion, but ultimately only Nick's opinion matters to me, and he's been telling me since I was 22 that it is possible. And that's the reason why, honestly, mate, there was a part of me when I won my pro card where I was like, you know what, I think I'm done. That's me. I don't want to push anymore. Again, I've been uncomfortable my whole adult life in some way, and I'm kind of done with that. But like Nick, I can't remember when Nick told me, but he was just like, you could win a pro show one day, and that's my motivating factor. The fact that I think I actually could do it one day, and that's keeping me driven. But yeah, hand on heart, I could have easily have just stopped after I won the pro card.
So something that I hear a lot is obviously like getting the pro card, something that so many guys want, and then when you get there, it's like it's like going back to your first time again. You know, it's like your first show because you're kind of back at the bottom of the ramp
Yeah,
again.
it was a very anticlimactic moment. Don't get me wrong, I was fucking delighted. Um, I had like all my mates there. My mum and dad were there. A lot of the British scene were there. It was a great day, and like I fucking loved it. It was one of the best days of my life. At the same time, I remember being handed the card and being like, "Well, that's that done." You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? And then I remember going home and being like, "What do I do now?" And then that's you right back at the bottom again. And it's not as if I'm a phenom either. Like, there will be a lot of graph for the next decade. I plan on, I hope to last a decade doing this, another decade. So I said I'll call it a day when I'm 42. I don't know why I put 10 years. 10 years is just a nice round number. So yeah,
Something that I kind of
it was quite anticlimactic.
yeah. I was gonna say so something that I kind of experienced after competing. I don't know if you've ever felt this, but feeling like a bit lost. Like
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
you rebound out of your prep, and you've got this big off season ahead of you before you compete again, and you do feel a bit lost.
yeah.
Would you say that that was kind of along the lines of how you felt getting the pro cards? It's like fuck, like I've got this big journey ahead of me now, and it's not even just like it's my next off season and then I prep. It's like it's going to be multiple off
Yeah,
seasons and preps
yeah,
before I get to where I want now.
yeah. The what I actually done post show, you might have seen a post on that I done it a while ago, is that I said right, I've done this since days dot. I've sacrificed a strong word. I think I kind of stand with like what a few other pros say about it. It's not a sacrifice to me. Any of this that we've done, it's I'm more than happy to do it. So it's not a sacrifice to me. But I have kind of given up, a social life, having a bit of a normal life, if you want to call it. So I said to myself, right, I'm going to win the card. I'm just give myself a good bit of time just to go out. I went to Ibiza, go out drinking, going on nights out, just doing stuff that I'd have been scared to do, missing meals, missing cardio, missing sessions. I did that until about September, and then I was like, right, I'm locking back in now. And so post pro card, no, I don't think I felt too lost. I felt like I needed to live like a normal 30-year-old, 32-year-old man for a wee bit and just give myself a bit of time to kind of get my head straight and stuff like that. I also came out of a relationship in that prep as well, so that was something that I wanted to just kind of, what's the word? Put to rest as well in that time period as well. So I just wanted to kind of get my personal life and my mental state, not mental state, my personal life into a good place, and then kind of know that right, I've had my fun. Let's start the pro era. But post show, all the way from juniors up until the season prior to my pro card win, yeah, I did feel quite lost post show. Almost every single time, I would say, and I still train, still relatively disciplined, but yeah, it's kind of like right, okay, cool. Especially going from juniors to misters, that was a 3-year gap. I felt that was quite tough. I found myself kind of knocking off the rails, but I kind of felt kind of straying at that point, like doing half-assed workouts and whatnot, and yeah, that was the period of time, just because of the length of time that I felt like that.
Yeah. Do you feel a lot more pressure now that you've got your pro card to be disciplined in these aspects?
I'm not going to lie and say that it doesn't play into my mind when I'm thinking about skipping a meal or bailing from a set. I will say like you shouldn't be doing that. You're a pro, so I won't lie and say that it does cross my mind and it does help. But at the same time, I think I love training, so missing training does get to me. But missing meals and stuff like that, or cheating on my diet in an off season, that has been far less frequent compared to previous years.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at it in a positive way as well. Like something that I do to get myself through sets is I imagine myself on stage again. So like, let's say I'm doing like a set of like I don't know curls, and I'm like thinking about right, what's my front double going to look like on stage, and I go through this set as hard as I can, And like you could probably use that with, right, I'm going to be standing on a pro stage, so this set needs to count.
Yeah, yeah.
It can be a positive thing.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I won't lie and say it doesn't cross my mind when I'm wanting to slack in some way. But in terms of like pressure, like I don't know, I don't know. I think I handle stress quite well. I don't feel pressured by anyone to compete. Don't feel pressured by my mates, Nick, no one. I just feel that I feel supported. If anything, like like guys like yourself and whatnot. Like you've always got such nice things to say when you're kind of like talking about me and that. So yeah, it's support more than anything. I don't really feel pressure. I think people kind of recognise that I've been doing this for a long time. I don't know many Scottish bodybuilders that have been doing it longer than me who are still active. I'm sure there are, but yeah, it's been a long haul, and everyone that I bump into and meet, and for whatever capacity, just seem very supportive. So I think that kind of takes the pressure off at the end of the day.
We're quite close knit in Scotland. It's like this community, everybody knows each other, and we all want to see each other do well. And I think seeing somebody come out of what we're involved in, with Scottish bodybuilding, all the boys have got granite, PCA, familiar faces, and you see one of them go off and make it. It's good to see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's pretty cool. And like I'm excited for. There's a lot of physiques in Scotland that are of great potential, and it's going to be exciting over the next few years when bodybuilding like really starts to explode in Scotland. I think we've seen a big boom since COVID anyway, of people who compete and go to the gym and train and things like that, and it's only going to get better because I think England's currently having its kind of its heyday just now. I mean, the current Mr. Olympia is English, so I do think Scotland will have its day where we start really producing more and more and more pros. I mean, we've got myself, Erin, and Max, and then there's plenty of other guys on the scene that can do not just IFBB but across PCA and all the other feds as well. So it's an exciting time to be in Scottish bodybuilding. And like you've got shows like the Granite, which are just insanely popular, and things like that, like just kind of holding down the fort and kind of bringing up all these people and making bodybuilding accessible. I think even when I started, bodybuilding was still very, I don't know, culty, whereas now it's not mainstream, but it's definitely not, in my opinion, culty. You can talk to someone in the general public and they'll know what a bodybuilder is, and most will have a kind of mixed reception towards that, but it's not as underground. Not underground, but let's just say that for the sake of argument, it's not as underground as it was when I started. Anyway,
yeah, I think it's like it used to just be something that only weirdos did, and now it's like popular.
We are weirdos. It's just more popular weirdos now.
We all stand on stage tanned with gloss and in underwear next to other men, so it's pretty weird.
It's pretty weird. It's quite like I actually said that at a check-in right before we started. What was I saying to my client? What did I say? I said something. I was like, I can't believe I tell grown men to do that in check-ins. Like, what was it? Someone do a posing anyway. I was like, I get paid to do this. This is really weird. You know what I mean? It's just that realization that bodybuilding is actually very, 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 very strange. But it's the pinnacle of fitness. You know what I mean? It's the extremity of fitness, and it is becoming a lot more mainstream. I think it'll never be on Sky Sports or anything like that. We know that, but I think people are far more receptive to it than they were in years gone by.
And we're seeing it growing a bit more in Inverness, where I'm based as well. Like I've had conversations with Jack, and when he's talked about like kind of the past with his competing experience, and like he said that it's a very lone venture out here in the Highlands.
Yeah, I can believe
and
that.
It is growing. There's more of us getting involved in it now. Like I've got clients that have got aspirations to compete in the future as well, because they're gaining interest from watching me. I obviously got into it through Jack. Like it's very much growing in Inverness, which I'm happy to see.
Yeah, and if anything, there's the genetic pool in like rural areas, I feel is superior to the cities. Anyway, I mean, we actually spoke about it. Me and Jack spoke about this on the podcast. Like, who are they? Name some of the biggest guys in Scotland. You've got me, Jack, Josh Dougal, Greg. They're all truthers, you know what I mean? So, well, not truthers, but we're not Glaswegian or from Edinburgh. So, you know what I mean? It's there must be something in like the non-central belt gene pool that's very receptive towards bodybuilding, and so
I've never thought about that.
yeah, I know. It's when you think about it, actually, it's like, actually, aye, it's all them, and like the two strongest men in one of them, the strongest men in the world, up from your way in Invergordon. Like, you know what I mean? It's there definitely is a gene pool that's not been thoroughly excavated yet when it comes to the bodybuilding. Anyway,
I've got some freaky genetics up here.
yeah,
That's what we need. But yeah, no, it's good to see bodybuilding growing in Scotland, and hopefully it continues to do so as we
definitely
move forward. You know, especially with like granite. Like granite gets bigger and bigger every year.
You know, you've got like English competitors wanting to do the granite now, which is unheard of. So until they realise where Aberdeen actually is, and they're like, oh fucking hell, that's an 8-hour drive. But like my client Josh, he said he wanted to do the granite, and he's from Yorkshire and stuff like that. And the people up and down the country know what the granite is. So I think they did. I think the best move was removing themselves from the IBFA and make it an independent show. But at the same time, I don't think many people kind of knew it was IBFA anyway.
Nah,
You did, but you didn't. You know what I mean?
I don't think it brought much value to
No,
granite that
no.
they couldn't get on their own, and it gives them a bit more freedom.
Yeah,
But it's the same with I was going to say with PCA. Like the Scottish is now a pro qualifier. That's going to draw guys from down in England over as
Yeah.
well. Like
Yeah.
it's massively getting bigger and bigger. You know, it's almost as if more and more is happening each year. And
yeah,
it's good to see.
yeah. It is good to see. It is a great evolution of where, again, I sound like an old boy, but back in my day in 2008, like it was non-existent up here. It really was. That Scotland does have a good history of bodybuilding and bodybuilders, but I felt like the 2000s were perhaps not our best time, and I think now in the 2020s it's definitely a decade where I think bodybuilding's going to explode in Scotland anyway.
Yeah, I think we'll see some big things happening over the next
Yeah,
few years.
yeah, definitely.
So I'll move on to my. We'll try and bash through this because it's like over an hour now. I don't want to take up too much of your time. It was actually just one last topic that I had. So, how do you, and this is completely related to the usual topic of this podcast, how do you personally manage your bodybuilding lifestyle around the rest of your life?
I surround myself with bodybuilders. No, I know that is partly true, to be fair. I don't really have to think about that.
I suppose because you're, it's much and such similar with like myself. I think it's different for guys that have got different careers. Like,
Yeah.
if you aren't a coach that's in the gym all the time doing PTs and you're on the laptop coach doing check-ins for somebody, you can kind of build your day around bodybuilding.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I have structured my work and my life around my training. So, and that's a very, 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 very fortunate position to be in. Like, we go back to Scottish bodybuilding, Scottish fitness industry. That didn't exist 10 years ago. Where you could coach people online, make a great living from it, and live a relatively stress-free life. So yeah, all my mates I see on a daily basis are bodybuilders. Like I said, I work in a gym, a PT coach. It's not hard to, it's really not hard. And I know maybe you got people watching this or listening to this that do have an actual job, and that doesn't really offer much in any way of advice, but you just have to kind of do your best with what you've got. And the best thing I feel people can do is book out their training in like their diary. So, if you work, just say a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, give yourself definitely the weekend to train. So do like a session on a Saturday and a Sunday morning, and then like a day that you anticipate to be your best day, or quietest days, Monday to Friday, put the other 2 sessions in there, other 3 sessions in there. You just have to mold your training around. But I think do your best to mold your life around your sessions. Now that might sound very obsessive, but ultimately, if you want to be fit and healthy, regardless of what fitness endeavor you follow, whether that's bodybuilding, high rocks, CrossFit, whatever it may be, you do have to base your life around it, and ensure that it's a focus. When it's not a focus, that's when either you don't do it or progression is vastly limited. So my advice to people who do have actual jobs, proper jobs, it would be just try your best to just kind of mold your life around what you want to do fitness wise.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I think something that people massively overlook is people feel like they've not got enough time to go to the gym. Like, I'm not speaking just like bodybuilders here, because we're pretty dialed in with what we do and we're routined. I don't need to say this to bodybuilders, but for people that are just trying to get into the gym, they feel like they don't have enough time because of their job, because of XYZ, and they don't realise that going to the gym, improving your fitness, it improves your mental health, it improves your energy levels, it makes you be able to do the other things that you're doing in life, your other endeavours, more productive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. And you've got, I'm sure you know people as well, 2, 3 kids, both partners work.
4.
There you go.
4.
There you go. Another example then. So
Nobody's got any excuses. I've got
no
4
one's
kids and I
got
bodybuild.
I remember a guy in the gym a while ago, and he was actually talking about Greg, and he was like, I saw Greg's post about how there's no excuses and stuff. He's like, that's easy for him though. I was like, mate, you should shut up. No, it's not. The guy was actually my client for about a couple of months, and he's like, oh mate, it's my daughter and stuff like that, it makes it hard to train and stuff. I was like, what time does your daughter get up? He's like, 7. I was like, you live across the road from a 24-hour gym, go at 5. He didn't like that answer. So it's one of those ones where you just have to turn. I'm sure you've had clients as well. You just turn around and go, you don't want this enough. You don't want it enough. And the sooner you tell yourself that, the better. But if you do want it, you'll move mountains to do it, regardless of kids, job, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I find that clients can't really tell me that they've got an excuse like with kids or that, because
You're in a perfect position for that.
I make it happen, dude. Like, it's and the thing is, like, it translates over to how I can be with my kids. Like, if I didn't do this, I wouldn't be the same dad that I am. Like, my kids kind of look up to me because of what I do.
Yeah, definitely.
It's if I didn't do this, I don't think that I'd be the same person. I wouldn't be able to do what I do with them.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's
It's like you're the perfect person to be like, nah, shut up. Total shite.
yeah, exactly. No fucking excuses.
Yeah. Whereas I live by
Actually,
myself. Yeah, I live by myself. You know what I mean? And people are like, oh mate, shut up, you know what you're talking about. So at least they can't do that with you.
well, like, see, when I was on prep, so I'll give a shout out to my mate Chris. We were on prep together, and he's also got kids, and he's the only guy that I know that does bodybuilding, and we just so happen to be on prep at the same time together, that like genuinely understands the actual struggles of prep when you've got kids.
Yeah.
Like, how much more difficult it is.
Yeah.
So me and him connected quite a lot on that. He's the only other person I know that's got the same difficulty, and I definitely respect people that have kids just that little bit extra more.
No, I agree. Yeah, I
Comes to
completely agree.
bodybuilding,
100% agree.
See, times when I've not had the kids, like when they're off at their like grands or whatever, like, man, it's so much easier to get shit done. Like, see, even just like getting your meals in on time, getting to bed on time, it's just everything just flows a lot better. So it's nice when it happens. But
Yeah, my training
for the
partner,
kids,
he's got 2 of his own, and his partner's got another 2 as well. So, like, he's just like yourself, mate. You just get it fucking done. You just find a way. You just get it done. Obviously, I've got a few pals who compete at a high level as well, who have kids, and it's so doable. It's so doable. But again, I'm not in the position to dictate. But I know for a fact if I had kids, I'd find a way to do it as well. It's just about finding ways, and you've got people like yourself who are more than well positioned to give advice and to help coach people who do have kids and responsibilities. So it only takes for one person to do it for people to realise it's actually doable. So yeah.
Hopefully, for anybody listening, that kind of, if you've been on an hour and about whether you can do this or not, hopefully that's a bit of inspiration right there.
Yeah, and plug in your coaching as well.
That's it. Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up there, Andy. Like I said, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I've got through all my questions there. That was really good. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, mate, that doesn't feel like an hour 20. That's mad.
We had good conversation, so it just flows.
Aye.
But no, I'll need to come down and see you again at some point soon. Do a wee bit of posing.
Yeah, definitely, mate, 100%.
We'll get some bits done. I did say that to you last time that we'll probably come down halfway through the off season, which we're probably going to be at within the next few months. So it'd be good to come down and do a few bits.
Yeah, mate, you got my number. You know where to get me.
That's it. Right. Anyway, Sorry, I'll finish that there. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. I'll leave that there. Take care, and we'll see you all later.
Cheers, guys.
Oh, it's not. There we go.